All right, so we're just going to finish this 9.2 note-taking guide today before we do the worksheet. But what I really want to do today is just talk through what the equations are doing and then show you how to graph it on the graphing calculator. So does anybody know what this cosine function is going to be doing if we have this minus pi force attached to the x?
Left.
Yeah, is it left or right?
Left, right.
It's right, yeah. Because on the x-axis, anytime you have a plus or minus attached to the x, you're moving along the x-axis. But we're looking for the number that x would be. So the number that x would be to make this 0 inside here would be positive pi force. So this would be moving in the positive direction pi force, which would be right pi force. So you know that you're just phase shifting this, you're picking it up and you're moving it pi force to the right. So the original cosine function starts up at 1 and it ends up at 1 at 2 pi. But we're going to take that starting point and that ending point and move it pi force to the right, which is just one spot. So here and here. And then if you remember, halfway in between those, that would be our minimum value. Does anybody remember where it goes down to? -1. So right here at -1. But again, you guys, I really want to show you how to do this today on the graphing calculator so you can just kind of talk through the movement and then graph it to see. So grab your graphing calculators out and let's just do it in the equation. So you're going to hit that y equals and you're going to enter that cosine. And then inside the parentheses, you're going to have x minus, and I'm going to put parentheses around my fraction because these graphing calculators aren't like our other ones where it does fractions really nice. We have to use that division key. So we're going to do pi on the top, and the pi button you have to hit the second key to get to. Did you guys find it? It's right here on the above the caret key. So hit your second key and then do that, and then do your divided by 4. Close your parentheses for the fraction, and then close your parentheses again to close your second set of parentheses. Then just hit graph and you can just check your work to see if you did it right. So the cosine graph normally starts at 0. This one doesn't start at 0 though. It starts over at pi force like it's supposed to, and it ends over here. So we did graph that correctly. It's kind of hard to tell on your graphing calculator that it's counting by pi force most of the time, but just kind of keep that in mind, okay? All right, what do you think this second graph right here is going to do? Example 4. What does the -3 tell me my graph's going to do? Yeah, I'm moving my graph down 3 units, okay? So again, just kind of sketch what you think it's going to look like, and let's graph on the graphing calculator to check. So normally I would start up at 1 and I would end up at 1 at 0 and 2 pi. Everybody agrees that that's what my original graph would do. So where am I going to move those points to? I'm going to move them down 3. So 1, 2, 3. My original or my new graph is going to start here and end here. Then again, if we were just talking about our original graph, we would have started, or in the middle right here, we would have been down at -1. Do you guys agree with me on that? So this new graph moves down 3 from there, which makes me down at -4. So then you can just sketch your graph through those ordered pairs. Let's plug it in on the calculator to see if we did it right.
There's an issue with that.
Okay.
And
I bet you I can tell you what your issue is. So here's the thing. Do the cosine of x. Close your parentheses because that x -3, the x is by itself, right? It's not got that attached to it in parentheses. So close your parentheses and then do -3 and then hit graph.
this is Clark, Lord Genius.
Oh, thank you. Is that funny? I knew what your mistake was before you even told me.
Yeah.
And the reason is again, the x needs to be by itself on that. So close those parentheses to make sure it's by itself. And then make sure that -3 is back behind. Did we graph it okay? We did good, right? Did you check to see where you were down to? And where you started? So we did a great job on that. Okay. All right, so then the question is, can we put it all together? Well, we can. We know we can. We're going to graph these, and we're going to just use our calculator to help and make sure that we have it right, okay? So again, what's this plus 3 back behind going to do? Yeah, we should be moving up 3 units, right? And then that negative out front's flipping me upside down, and the 1/2 is changing my amplitude. Okay, so let's see if we can answer these questions down here and then just use our calculator to graph it. Do we have a vertical shift, meaning are we going up or down? We're going up 3. Do we have a phase shift going left or right? No phase shift, right? Because we didn't move left or right. What's the period going to be then? We didn't change the period because there's not a number in front of the x being multiplied. So my period's 2 pi. What's my amplitude going to be? 1/2, right? My amplitude is 1/2. My domain, I know what my domain's going to be even before I graph it, but my domain will go from -infinity to infinity. And then my range, if you think about it, you could figure it out probably. But let's graph it on our calculator and see. The range is the one that's maybe a little bit hard to guess on without seeing it. So go to your y equals on your graph, and you're going to put it in. You're going to do negative. Now, you guys, I always put my parentheses around my fractions because I don't want my calculator to be confused at what I'm trying to do. I want a fraction of 1/2. So I'm going to put it in parentheses like that. Then I'll have the cosine of x. Again, close those parentheses because that plus 3 is back behind. And then do your add 3. Is everybody okay with how I put that in?
Yeah.
Then just hit graph. And we knew its amplitude was only going to be 1/2, so we knew it wasn't going to be very tall at all, right? It moved up 3 units, though. So my starting point is up at 3 and ending at 3. Oh, 3 or 4. So just sketch that graph really fast on your paper. And if you're trying to figure out where spots are at, you can trace so you know where you're at there. So you're really up at 2.5 to start that graph. And just kind of give it a good sketch.
Teachers, please excuse interruption. I need the students that are going on the DSU tour this morning to please come to the counseling office. Any senior graduating student that is registered and been accepted at DSU that's going on the field trip, please come to the counseling office. Thank you.
Okay, next one. Let's see if we can answer the questions, and then you can just use your calculator to graph it. What's the 2 going to do? It changes the amplitude. And what's the pi halves going to do? Move it where? Left pi halves. So, oh, we forgot to go and do the the range on the other one, didn't we? We'll go back and do it in just a second. Okay, did this one have a vertical shift? Yeah, it did not go up or down, so it's no vertical shift. Does it have a phase shift? Yeah, it went left pi halves. Did we change the period? No, so it's still 2 pi. The amplitude's going to be 2 because of the number out front right here. The domain's still going to be -infinity to infinity. And the range, let's take a look at the graph before we decide. So go into your y equals. You're going to do 2 cosine. Open those parentheses. Well, they're open for you already. Do x plus, and you guys remember how I said I always put my fractions in parentheses so my calculator doesn't get confused. So do that pi divided by 2 in its own set of parentheses, just like that. And then you can hit graph on your graphing calculator. Questions on how I entered that in my calculator? We knew the amplitude was going to make it look taller or stretched, and it did. So again, if you're trying to figure out where your points are at, you can hit trace. You start at 0. Because we phase shift this, right? We went left pi halves. So we knew we were going left pi halves. So you can give it a good sketch from your graphing calculator. So we're something looking like that. Yeah, it's the same note-taking guide though from last week. So on Thursday, we're just finishing it up. Okay. So if we're looking at the range on this, you can always find your range from your graphing calculator. If you go and click on that lowest point right there, that minimum, my y value is really a -2 right there, right? You can see where it's going to -2. And what's your highest value? Well, you can still just trace, get up there to that highest value, and what value is it? It's approaching 2, right? So we're going to go -2 to 2 on our range.
Why doesn't it just move